you have anything else to say about that, Pete, or do you
No,
want
it's time to move on.
Okay, so so at any rate, other people, however, other folks at MIT also got their hands on the computer to play with it, not necessarily to do serious research work. One of those people was Marvin Minsky, and Marv was a brilliant guy who did a lot of work in artificial intelligence, and he wrote an interesting piece of software for the PDP-1. It was called the Minskytron. And this is the Minskytron. Okay, and it's 3 dots, and they all have this relationship with each other. It looks sort of like, you know, something orbiting, you know, a couple of dots orbiting around another dot. And over time, it changes, and until it goes weird. Like right there, it just went weird, right? And the more you watch it, the stranger it gets. Now, mind you, when the PDP-1 team finally got finished getting the hardware working, and especially getting the display working, which was really a chore, we could sit there and watch this kind of thing for an hour. Yeah. Okay? Because it was just too amazing to us to see. But normal people could probably watch it for 5 minutes before they get bored, right? So at any rate, Marv Minsky did this, and it was kind of cool. But one of the other people at MIT that saw this and other demonstrations that were on the were on the PDP-1, said, you know, we ought to use this for something really cool. And one of those guys was Steve Russell, and what he thought about was space. And the reason he was thinking about space is, anybody remember what happened in that era that got the whole U.S. shaken up? Sputnik, yeah. Well, Sputnik was the thing. The Russians put up a satellite that flew around the Earth. And some of us who were techies actually built receivers so we could listen to the beeping sound of Sputnik as it would fly over. And I was in San Mateo at the time, here in California, and I used to listen to Sputnik. And it was, you know, it was both a scary thing to think that the Russians had a satellite flying around, but it was also cool that they had something up there that was, you know, zooming around the Earth. But at any rate, this prompted everybody to be thinking about space. I mean, everybody started thinking about spaceships and flying in space, and TV just went berserk on sci-fi. Okay, lots of sci-fi programs dealing with space. And Steve Russell, who was at MIT, looked at these things on TV, and he was really irritated because they were driving spaceships like they were cars. They were making sharp turns in space. They were firing, you know, guns like they were the bullets coming, you know, like. And he says it just won't work that way. Space doesn't work that way. Somebody ought to, you know, do it right. And so he kept saying this. And he kept trying to encourage other people to write software to do it for the PDP-1 because it had a display. So I mean, gosh, you know, that seems like a good thing to do. And everybody kept saying, no, look, it's your idea, why don't you do it? And he kept coming up with excuses why not to do it. And finally, he thought he had the most brilliant excuse. He said, look, one of the things that you need in order to simulate space is sine and cosine routines. I'm not really great at math. I don't know how to write that kind of software for the PDP-1. Sorry, I can't be the guy to do it. So one of his buddies, Al Kotak, drove to Maynard, Massachusetts, which wasn't too far from MIT, went to Digital Equipment Corporation and said, do you have any sine cosine routines for the PDP-1? And they said, sure. And he said, can we have them? And they said, sure. And they gave him the code for the sine cosine routines. He brings them back to MIT, drops them in Steve's lap, and says, what's your excuse? And so Steve was embarrassed into doing Space War. And Space War became the first interactive computer game in the world. And so here it is. This is Space War as it originally was. So you have 2 spaceships, and these controls that you have right here work. Okay? So you'll see, you can tell who you are because if you push the thrust button, you'll see a little tail come out of your spaceship and move it forward. You can also fire photon torpedoes, and the idea is to shoot down the other guy, okay? So each of you has a spaceship, and you can shoot down the other person. Hitting hyperspace will take you away from where you are and move you to someplace else on the screen.
How do you control it?
You control it by pushing the button. This is